I've worked with a lot of graphite pencils, but these ones? These pencils had me questioning everything I thought I knew about drawing. There's not much innovation in the art world, but Faber Castell Pitt Matt promises an ultra dark tone, no glare, and an upgraded drawing experience. But I noticed one surprising flaw that no one seems to mention. Quick disclaimer that I bought these with my own money and my opinions are my own. Now, before any tests, let's dive into first impressions. Right off the bat, the black color feels really luxurious. Now, these feel really light in the hand, and they claim to be very hard to break. Although I haven't exactly put that to the test because I'm not just actively snapping pencils like the Hulk. And also in this set comes a really nice blending stump. Now I'm used to the really thin one, so this thick boy is actually quite nice and really easy to hold in the hand. Now I do wish there was a kneaded eraser instead of this one, but you know what they say, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So overall, I'd say this is a pretty nice kit, and the metal tin is quite nice as well. You can take it with you on the go. It stays closed really easily with no issues, and it's also really light and easy to handle. The other thing I surprisingly enjoyed about this set is that you can easily see the distinction between the light tones and the dark tones just based on the lead. You don't even need to do a swatch test to be able to tell which color is which. Now, why is this set so special? Nice packaging, that's easy, but what's harder is making graphite feel like something new. The formulation of this line is different to the 9000s or even normal pencils, but Faber Castell isn't exactly forthcoming with the details. It's likely some combination of graphite with clay or carbon, but we don't know for sure. Whatever this combination is gives the anti-glare finish and the deep blacks, like in this 14B pencil. A pretty common mistake is staying close to the midtones of your graphite line without adding too much dimension or shadows. So having these pencils with this wide range really helps you accentuate those dark areas and bring your piece to life. So why does the matte finish specifically matter? Say you've worked on a stunning graphite piece, it's all finished, and now you're ready to frame it and put it up on your wall. Now you put it up, you tilt it, and all you see is shine. Now, you might be able to manipulate your own light conditions to have it look great, but what if you're selling it to your grandma or an external party? We know that there's a risk of shine with graphite, but other folks may not. So being able to reduce the glare in different light conditions, that is a pretty big win for artists. Also, if you're photographing your own work or scanning it, you want it to be pretty consistent, and the shininess is a big detractor. A lot of artists switch to charcoal for this exact reason, but maybe there won't be a reason to if these pencils hold up to their marketing claims. Now, I'm pretty used to drawing with graphite, so I was actually very surprised that I noticed a difference in these pencils. And the difference is kind of this grippy, higher friction feel. I even tested them on thinner paper just to see if there was something wrong with me. That's how surprised I was that pencils felt so different than what I was used to. I wouldn't say this friction necessarily changes my technique, but I do feel like I need to go a little bit slower, maybe a little more controlled, and really think about where I'm putting my strokes. I think this is definitely something you can get used to, and spoiler alert, I did after working with these pencils for a couple different pieces, but the very first time, it was still crazy to me that a pencil just felt so different. Now let's do a swatching test to see how these compare to the 9000s. From the very first impressions, it almost feels like the 9000s have a wider range of values, but the value is so dependent on pressure, this isn't necessarily a drawback. The Pitt Matts felt a lot softer on the paper. With the HB and the other midtones, I felt like I was able to get a lot more coverage. Again, there's a little bit more friction with each pencil, but this is something you can get used to. I do want to note that when you're making a lot of continuous single lines, this is when the friction could come into play. If you're cross-hatching with sharp, short strokes, this shouldn't be an issue for you. When I switched to the 9000 line and picked up the HB pencil, it did feel a little bit lighter in the hand, and it also felt scratchier on the paper. And this is just based on vibes, but the Pitt Matts did feel a little bit more luxurious. I don't know, the 9000s almost felt like I was back in school and filling out a standardized test with your regular number 2 yellow pencil. I used the thick tortillon that came with the set to test out the blending capabilities. I was very surprised by how little the Pitt Matts smudged. You can see how even the smudging and blending is. They also pulled down proportionally to their tone, like the HB smudging matches the HB pencil lines. Another observation, which kind of corresponds to the gradient test, is that I felt like I was able to get more coverage and have less scratchy lines when I was working with the Pitt Matts. Now for the glare test. Now this is where the Pitt Matts should really shine, or I guess shouldn't shine, but they should have a big advantage here since this is literally what they are made for. The darkest values are a little bit more reflective than the lightest ones. You can see here the 14B is a little bit shinier than the 2H. It feels much safer to be able to make something for a client or hang something up on the wall with these Pitt Matts. A tip I saw on the interwebs is to go over your darkest darks with a lighter or mid-tone to take away some of the extra shine. So for example, you can make your darkest darks with a 14B and then go over that again with a 2B to take away some of the shine without actually changing any of your values. Thank you, internet stranger, for that one. All right, now for the erasing test. I really thought I'd be able to see a difference with just one stroke of the mono eraser, but nope, nothing. So this is 10 back and forth motions for each circle. And the takeaway here is that it's definitely not easy to erase. I think the matte binder clings to the paper fibers a little bit more, so it just kind of worms its way in there. It's definitely still erasable, but if you're doing a very light sketch or doing an underlayer, I would recommend using a different pencil for that. So why does this matter? Obviously, if you make a mistake or maybe you're not confident in your lines, being able to erase easily is really a key part of your process. But if you're also doing the art school way of drawing where you're doing an outline and then defining your shadows with a 4-tone, then going back in with a 2 and then lifting highlights out of that 2 to take that back to a 1, these pencils can definitely impact that process since it's much harder to lift the tones out of the paper. If that flaw matters to you, then that changes how you use the pencils. If it doesn't, then you might not care at all. Either way, here's what I noticed when I was drawing with these for an extended period of time. I actually noticed this from the very first time I used these pencils, is I had way less graphite residue on the bottom of my right hand. These pencils definitely smudge much less than your standard. I actually view this pretty favorably because when you want to blend, you definitely still can. There's just not that much more graphite residue floating around and going where you don't want it to go. The other thing that's really nice about these is they're very easy to layer. I've heard other lines have issues being able to switch between different lines, and these do very well. You can layer them with other graphite. You can even layer these with colored pencils as well. I tested them with my Faber Castell polychromos and they did exceptionally well blended together. At this point, you can probably guess whether you'll like these or not, but let's make it extra clear about who will win with these and who won't. I think these are great for artists who want really deep blacks without the shine, artwork that photographs cleanly, and controlled, deliberate shading. I think these are less ideal for artists who rely heavily on erasing for highlights, prefer ultra smooth, buttery graphite, or want expressive, fast, loose sketching. Now for the final verdict. If you don't like how these feel for an everyday workhorse, but you also don't want the glare from traditional graphite, you could do your entire piece in your preferred graphite pencil and then just do your final wash in these dark matte blacks. This would give you the results you're looking for without doing the entire piece using them. But overall, I'm very pleased there's still innovation in the art world, especially with something as much longevity as a pencil. Okay, let's take some thumbnails, please.
You can consider the photo if you're fine.